Hello, man. Hello, man. Hello, Mgtow. Let me get this sound in order so I can. There we go. Sounds a little light. Lately, I've been thinking about why Mgtow, and some questions have gone in through my head, and I see around the Mgtow sphere certain things that are happening, and certain infighting, and certain male tournamenting. Males tournament, they compete, and this is why Mgtow. Trying to explain why Mgtow sometimes is a hard thing to do unless you've seen it in your life. And I've recently experienced a situation where there was a group situation, and there was two men that entered the room. The rules are general in these kind of situations. There's so many people in the room, a vote will be taken, this will happen. But for some odd reason, the two men were excluded, and they said, you gentlemen. And they said words like, you men are here. And then the vote went the opposite way. And the vote went the opposite way for gynocentric reasons, so the female would benefit in that situation. Now, I know that's hard and complex to understand, and I explain it in a general way. These things turn into family situations. These things turn into legal situations. These things turn into social situations where we're communal, where we work together, and everybody's supposed to have this equal vote in here, and everything. Everything was supposed to be discussed, and logic was supposed to be applied to these things. But a lot of times in my life, I've seen situations and family situations. Like I was simile, and that things don't go according to logic. So to say, there was supposed to be 4 people in the room or 5 people in the room, and these 5 people were supposed to vote on something. And if you remove the 2 males from the room in a gynocentric system, and they change the laws or change the results, they change the results of the outcome of that will go for the matriarchal system. And unless you ever seen that system play out in front of you in a large group setting, say a hospital, or say a courtroom, or say in a PTA meeting, or say in a social event where the women take over and they decide that the men really have no voice in that, you never really get to really experience gynocentrism. You never really know what gynocentrism is, and you never really know why we talk about why women should vote, why women should not vote, because unless you experience these things in life, and when we talk about experience, we generally flippantly say it out. Oh, you need life experience to know about Mgtow, to know about gynocentrism, to know about how, and then we get people, and I've experienced life, but when you talk to people, sometimes they generally don't know about the undertones that happen in society, which men are aware of. When you're in one of those situations, in a family situation with a mother or a sister, and your vote no longer counts because they will make the decision that's best for the gynocentric, the female. In a decision like a PTA situation, you'll often see it play out where the women will take over the room, and they will vote in very gynocentric ways, whatever benefits the female. Unless you had these life experiences in life, unless you've ever been in a courtroom where you've been silenced and you've been made into pater. And it's what I call the replacement for father. Father, you're no longer the father, you are pater, Pater. You are Payter. You are made into a payer machine, a payer terminal, pater terminal. Unless you've been made into those things, you can't really see why we go Mgtow. And explaining these things, takes cooperation, and it takes cooperation of the group. It takes patience, and it takes sometimes it takes you being tolerant to other people and everything like that. But in Mgtow lately, I see the tournamenting, and the tournamenting it it makes the females right. And I always say, if you don't want to deal with feminism, and you don't want to deal with these things, never be what they say you are. Never be what they say you are in those situations. And but often in life, it's why anti-feminism breeds feminism, because you're being what they say they are. Then they've got the likely, they've got the butler did it. They've got the likely suspect, the person that's going to be taken and held up as an example of. Never be that person. Anti-feminism, for what it is the person they say we are. And you don't never want to be that. You want to be something different. You want to be a man above reproach. And that's what Mgtow says. We just don't argue these things. We just don't do these things. We just don't have these tournaments. But in Mgtow has become a lot like the MRA. The MRA has saturated Mgtow, where it's all about the male tournamenting. It's all about the competition. It's all about and we lose the heart of Mgtow. The heart, the thing that beats Mgtow, the thing that drives Mgtow forward, gets lost in all this stuff. And then we become what they say we are. And it's the saddest thing to look at. Now, unless you've witnessed these things in life, and I've witnessed these things in life many, many times, I witness groups of females acting in group mannerisms in illegal ways to catch and snare and trap men. Like I said, I was an Army guard at a Health and Human Service event, and it was prenatal care. And if you look at prenatal care, it's before she's pregnant. And there was a group of maybe 100, 200 women in there that were discussing how to trap a man, how to get him into the social system, how to run him through the court systems. And I was the guard at that door. And maybe I wasn't supposed to be listening. And maybe I wasn't supposed to be infuriated by that. But I was. And at the same time, I was protecting them. Because if any man had walked in there, he would go nuts. He would say, this is the exact reason why men go violent. This is the exact reason why men have made Mgtow and men have made the MRA and unless you see that in your life, unless you internalize that, what goes on in the female collective. And that can go from a simple family situation. I've experienced one just lately that woke me up to how things work in this world. And you get excluded from any decisions, and you become that pater instead of a father. And that's why I say you never be a father. You become the pater. You become the payer, the pater. It's pater. Payter. That's what they call it, an electronic payee terminal, like an ATM. You become the ATM for the world, and that's all you will ever be in their eyes. And ATMs don't have votes. So there's this undergrained system of feminism that unless you've ever seen a bunch of women working together in that way and witnessed it and kind of took note in your mind on what was happening in a family situation or a group situation, unless you've seen that and been awakened to that, then I can't explain it to you. This all sounds like blah, 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 blah to these guys that are coming in. It sounds like blah, blah, blah. And what I'm saying is, if there was a male group to combat that female group that does these in the real world, not in our minds and not on these things, if there was a male group If you can rely on a male to be in your corner, why these things were happening, things would change in this world on every little micro situation that happens. If you can rely on a group of men, but we see this reflective in Mgtow, where the men start competing, the men start tournamenting. They're like rams beating against each other's heads for the female because they must agree with her, because that gives them the right to mate. Unless you see these situations, it becomes very clear. It becomes very clear. It becomes the absurd. You start living in the world of the absurd once you start noticing these things. And all you have to do is open up your mind and look around into your family situations, into an argument with females about what is going to happen, where you're going to go, where you're going to go to eat, stuff like that. And they become very clear that there's a collective within them. If you've ever been in a situation with that the vote went against you because for no other obvious reason than there was 6 women that had no other obvious connection to each other, and you're going, wow, that was strange how they just linked up, how they just agreed that this would happen instead of this. And sometimes it's anti-logical. This will happen simply because it benefits the gynocentric, and that's the reason why it's going to happen. Not for any logical reasons of right or wrong, not for any other logical reasons of this is the way law says it should happen. Now we often go over these things in our lives, and men come in and they start arguing in Mgtow, and I see, when I look at it, it sounds like, damn, I'm in the same world of the same absurd because of non-experience. And that's how you can tell a Mgtow, and you try to explain these things, but trying to explain a way of the world to a basketball will never work unless they're open to listening. Trying to explain these micro things that happen everyday life, it's never going to happen for them. They can't comprehend it until you see it for the first time, until you're the victim of it. And then you go, wow, that was absurd. Why did that take place? I've seen this over my lifetime many, many times in family situations, many times where females group up and a decision was to be made. I've seen these things work out between family members and out members, um, hospice situations, hospital situations, family situations, court situations, social situations where 2 females or 3 or 4 were in a group with no connection other than they were female. And the vote went with no other logical reason except they were female. And then once you see that, you go, wow, they are connected somehow. They're all connected somehow. And it's such a tight bond with them. You start envying it. You go, why can't Mgtow be like that? Why can't men's rights be like that? Then we become exactly what they say we are. We become the violent males, the IUD males. We become those males that are simping, and we become the white knights, and we become those beggars, and we become the cackling hyenas. And I see that all around, and they must giggle and they must laugh at us when we become that. And you would expect that in Mgtow that we could put our differences aside for just a little bit and become that group to show the world that on the outside, next time a man needs a man to have a man's back, he will be there and he will put away all that. And just for no other reason besides we are brothers, he will take his side. He will have his back. The same as feminism. The same as the female collective. Winninger talked about the female collective. Hobbes talked about the female collective. Jung talked about the female collective. Nietzsche talked about the female collective. And still the male of our time, the male of this great planet of such interest and such character and such modernity, and these buildings, these things we do in this time, men still cannot do that. Men still cannot internalize what the female collective is. We'll blame it on feminism, and it's an immature way of looking at it. We'll blame it on this or that, when immature way of looking at it, when really it is just what Marx said. It is a collective of females, and somehow they're bound together, and they will take each other's side. If you're on a jury and one decides, the alpha decides that the vote will go, they all will follow the alpha female. Just if it needs to go in a patriarchal way or a matriarchal way, and the jury is saturated with females, it will go in a matriarchal way just because of gynocentrism. And that doesn't have nothing to do with fair or honest. It has nothing to do with the law. It'll simply go that way because they say it, because it will somehow benefit females. And that's all you need to know. And that will happen around you in many situations in life. And unless you are aware of that, and you get caught off guard. And I know I've had this incident this week where I was caught off guard by the full complexity of it. And I was like, damn, that was it. But it gave me an answer to a question, and it reaffirmed my belief. And when you see it, all it does is reaffirm my beliefs. And when you see it, it will reaffirm your beliefs. You just have to identify it and say that was gynocentrism. Why Mgtow? We Mgtow because, by cause. Why Mgtow? We Mgtow because we have spotted these things. We Mgtow because we know that it seems to rub against logic, and there's bias, and it's harmful to us. We Mgtow by cause. But unless you've ever seen it or can internalize that in an emotional way, you will never know what it is. If you are a simp or a beggar, you heed way to gynocentrism just because it benefits you in one certain way. That split, that V, the thing you want most of all in life, the thing that you were biologically designed to chase. And by the way, man, go your own way. Go your own way. All your simp sins are forgiven when you come in here, and that's the way we should look at it. That's why I say it all the time. I say these things for reason. I'm a very logical man, probably overly logical. We must forgive each other for our simp sins. We must forgive our brother for his simp sins. And we must work together in a collective. Unless we can ever figure out how to work together in a collective of males and explain to all the males out there, we will lose. And we can argue all day about whether we're going to give women a vote or whether they already have a vote. And they will every single time vote against you or vote against your interests. Unless you are payor, payee, unless you are the paytar, payter, you are the ATM, you are a payer terminal. And the Germans call father Pater for a reason. It's legal father. You are simply the legal father, the one to be held accountable legally. Unless you see these things, unless we start rewording things, you're not a father, and never call yourself a father. You're a pater. You will pay. You are like an electronic machine that they push the buttons on and money comes out of. You are the utility. You are the things that make the society happen. But unless we as men can get together, and that may take years and years of evolution, and it's frustrating. And it is frustrating that we used to have a Mgtow that sort of put those things away for the greater good. And we've seen this little glean of what things could be for males. And then we gleaned that yes, there's problems. And yes, it has to do with us. And we can envy the female collective all they want. We can yell against it, but it is the way it is. And fencing with that dragon will never do you any good unless you are equal to that dragon. Unless you become that thing that they fear. Unless you become the decision in the room. Unless men start having men's backs just for the simple reason that you are brothers. And there is no other reason. And I agree with my brother simply because he's my brother. Unless we start acting the same way, they win. They're 54%. The vote will always go that way. And it's not just a political vote, if that's what you're thinking. It's every vote in every situation, from your family to, it will grow out from there to every single situation, from school to court. And gynocentrism shows its ugly face in every single situation. And unless you're able to spot it, and even if you're able to spot it, if you are all alone in a world of simps and white knights and beggars that will simply agree because it's the propensity to err on the side of the female, which is gynocentrism, we will lose, and we will continue losing. I was talking about absurdity this week, and life is absurd. You have to spot the absurdity of it all. I was looking at Jesse. I won't say his name the way he pronounces it, because he spells it all wrong and it's over sexualized. Jesse Smollett. And I was looking at the decisions that were made against. He's going to go up for 11 counts of 11 felonies. So a black man, and he's gay. He's also this queer character on Fox Drama Empire. There was why did he do what he did was the question, because there was a widespread outpouring of support from Smollett's colleagues, from the LGBT community, from the large group of politicians around him within Fox. There was support for him. Oh, you poor man. Why did he do it? It's the same reason why women do Me Too, because they get a huge amount of support from the gynocentric. The gynocentric automatically supports them. You believe survivors. That's what they're saying. Believe survivors. Ignore false accusation. That's what we say. Ignore the false accusations. But in reality, when we say ignore false accusation, we are simply a distraction for the female is filing a false report to the police. It is a felony in the same way Jesse Smollett filed a false report with the police. He is being charged with filing a false report. Every time a woman Mgtows a man and gets called out or caught, which happens thousands of times a year, they say the male cognitive says automatically, she's making a false accusation. Oh, that is so wrong. The male cognitive can't get together and say she has filed a false report, which is a felony. Do you see how it works with us, men? We do things that are anti against ourselves. From the police, think about that for a second. Take a short break in all you are thinking about and think about that for just 1 second. Say pause. Hmm. Hmm. Go your own way. Go your own way. Think about that for a second. Thousands and thousands of false reports. Filing a false report go on every single year. But when we look at Jesse Smollett, he will get charged with not 5, not 10, 11 felonies for what he did. But every single day, the gynocentric protects, and we fall in for it. We call it things we should not call it. False accusation. There's no false accusation in here. We've relieved the female of her agency when we say it's false accusation, because what we should say is she filed a false report with the police and it's a felony. We minimalize their crimes and we protect them against their crimes, and we ask why it's happening. And then we fall prey, victims to those crimes. And we say, why did that happen? But as a male, you know why it happened. Because of your own propensity to err on the side of a female. Then we look around the manosphere here. We look around Mgtow. And we see these things that are happening. This group's going to purge this group, and this group says it's going to purge this group, and this group, and SFM gets another strike the other day for seemingly no reason. And we have men that work against us in here, that actively call themselves Mgtow, that work against themselves the same way as they minimalize how we speak, how we call these things, how we form our words. It's not false accusation. She didn't simply make a false accusation. She filed a false police report that is a felony. And that's the only way it should be looked at. But we minimalize it. Why? Why is our language not developed to the point where we're allowed to say the truth? Well, I know why. Because I experience it almost daily. Because I experience the collective of females that will always err on the side of the female. What I was talking about before. You want to know why Jesse Smollett, and even though it is a heinous crime, it was no more heinous than a Me Too crime that gets untangled and identified, and then John the other just untangled and identified that she was lying. Will a felony charge be labeled against her. No, they will say, oh, she just simply made a false accusation. And that's not a crime. No, she filed a false report with the police, which is a felony. You see what we do in our heads. John would agree. We minimalize these things, and it happens every single day. We minimalize those effects on us. You have to be able to see it, to be able to spot it. That's what Mgtow's about. A collective of men that treats women the same way as they treat us, in equality. A collective of men that no longer say, I'm the father, I'm simply the pater. I'm simply the payor. I'm simply the slave. And by the way, slavery is illegal. Until we come to those agreements and we change our language, nothing will ever happen. As long as we have rotating groups of youthful and vigorous excitement for Mgtow, but never step forward to learn what Mgtow is actually about and why we have to do logic and why we have to be able to spot these things. It's never going to work. It's never going to work. As long as a half of the men in here are working for the other side, are agents, and would readily agree with a female on any turn of events. Until we can fix that, and all men just agree with a man simply because you're his brother, simply because it's the right thing to do, simply because it gives us equality, this thing is never going to work. And until we get the ideas, the idealism behind Mgtow back, it's not about fencing with females. It's not about feminism. It was never about that. We know what they are. We've already identified. If you come to Mgtow and you don't know what that collective is, then you don't belong here because you've never experienced it. But if you come to Mgtow and you know and you've experienced that collective, and it's hard to articulate. And there's a guy like me or Riff or Lost Shadow or Mgtow Values that says, here, let me tell you, son, let me explain this to you. There's a collective of females out there, and no matter what and if they're in a group, whatever decision they make will be for themselves. It will always be. And there's these men out there that will always agree with them. And in that, they make you into a payee. In that, they make you into that slave, that ATM. Unless that's explained to them, and unless they see it, unless they notably observe it in their universe, they will never understand it. But information is the first way to get a man to understand, and then he can, what do you would say? Take that and you make it experience. You make it into a life experience by teaching life experiences through things that reflect life experiences, auto mechanics and mathematics. And we teach kids how to build computers in schools because it reflects everything about life, about what we should be teaching them. And it's a practical thing. It's pragmatic thing until we teach boys how to be firemen and police officers and millwrights and electricians and plumbers in school. Practical things. That's the same problem Mgtow had. Until we can practically teach these boys why Mgtow is, then we're failing. We're failing. We're not being pragmatic about it. Sometimes it takes a man years to get that experience where he goes, man, I walked into this room and all the girls didn't know each other, but they all agreed that I was not supposed to be there, that I was something wrong. And they all agreed. And then the vote went against me. I didn't understand until I seen that. Until you see that with a family group of Hobbesian family groups. And you understand it. Hobbes explained it. They will dehumanize a single male in every family. Nietzsche says it. Jung says it. Winiger most certainly said it in so many ways that he could no longer live on this planet. And he put a bullet in his head on the same bed that Mozart died on. The symbolism of it. He can no longer see what Camus would say is the absurd. I can no longer live in this world of the absurd. I get up, I take a shower, I get on the trolley, I do my day's work, I take the trolley back home, I make myself dinner, and I go to sleep. And then I do the same thing the next day. And I do the same thing over and over and over every single day until I become Sisyphus, rolling that boulder up that hill and waking up in the morning, and there it is at the bottom of the hill for you again. Man, break out of that box. There's not a lot we can do. Life is chaos. Life is negation. You live so you can die. And the only thing you can possibly do in them moments is imagine Sisyphus happy. Imagine yourself happy. And what do we say in Mgtow? Someday, somewhere, I'm going to do something nice for myself. And I'm going to imagine myself happy instead of being that guy rolling that boulder up the hill. Always and forever. Imagine yourself happy. It'll take a little bit to pull away from the gynocentric. It'll take an effort on your behalf to notice why you are doing it, to justify the reasons why you are doing it. Liberation Y made a very good video last night. What pisses women off the most, what pisses the female collective off the most is a man like myself with great value that refuses to participate. And they will be mad at you. Yes, they will be mad at you. They will try to bring you down. And that's not just your family. That's just not a woman that you may have dated. That's the courts. That's the collective. That's the city you live in. They hate us because we have become the absurd to them, or we question the absurd. We noticed the negation, and all we said was, well, I just want to be happy for a moment in my life. I don't want to be the slave. I don't want to be the utility. I don't want to be the meat machine, the working machine. I don't want to be labeled as the working class. I want to experience something greater. Why do we Mgtow? That was the question. Why do we Mgtow? But you have to see it. You have to feel it. You have to experience it. It's in our job when men come around to say, hey, have you ever been in this situation where these things have happened? And you noticed something called gynocentrism. The female collective, Marx talked about it. He was fearful of it. He said that was the reason why these things will come to pass. Every single philosopher ever has mentioned it. But still in 2019, we have men that refuse. And I know what it is. I've often pondered what happens with a man when it goes one ear and out the other, and he's selective hearing. He has this selective hearing. He has a cognitive bias where he will not hear anything from his brother. He wants to hear it from the female voice. And I talked about the female voice. It has to come from the female voice or it's not hearable. He can't hear it. And then we look around Mgtow, and where do you see that? Where do you guys see that? And the guys that refuse to hear what we're saying because it comes from a male masculine voice. Because it has to come from a female. When you look up gynocentrism and you look on all the pundits underneath, and they're all female, which is the typification of gynocentrism. And it becomes so absurd to you, you become a Mgtow. And it's hard to explain why you did that at a moment's notice at a party. Why when a friend says, why are you Mgtow? Why don't you date? Why don't you do those things? And you're put on the spot for an answer. And I say it's just because is the simplest answer you can give. By cause. That's what because means. I was forced by cause. And that's the only answer you really need to give. Because I've seen it. Because it caused my life to be in turmoil. Because it hurt when they did that to me. And I was supposed to accept it. And I was supposed to be the slave. And I was supposed to carry on. And I was supposed to keep rolling that boulder up the hill. But I stopped and I walked away, and the boulder sits now. And the whole town is staring at the boulder. How are we going to get the boulder up the hill? So it can roll down the next day. You removed yourself. And that's Mgtow. And that's why we Mgtow. And I know it's all philosophically, so confusing for the younger men. And I know I talk about experience and to be able to clearly articulate these events as they happen to you in your life. You've all been in school. You've all been young men being taught by females in a female school where you were chained down to a desk. And you were thinking, this is absurd. I'm a boy and I want to run. And all of a sudden they told you the girls are doing better than you. Why? Because you chained me down to a desk. Can't you see that? I'm not them. I'm not like them. And they say, oh, yes, you are. You're exactly like them. I say, no, I'm not. And they say, yes, you are. And I say, it's absurd for you even to say that. I'm not a mother. I'm not a daughter. I'm not a sister. I can't make babies. And they say, oh, yes, you can, because you're going to pay for them. And you go, what? What? And it becomes easier just to acquiesce to it. It becomes easier as a man to acquiesce to it because you won't be punished anymore, because they will punish you. And all it will take is a little bit of your dignity, small piece of your dignity to acquiesce to those situations. And it becomes comfortable to do so. You know, I know, we all know, we've all been in those situations. But it became comfortable and easier to acquiesce because I will no longer be punished if I do. If I make that public recantation, oh, you girls are great. You're strong. You run the world. No, the world is run on slaves. And they build these things, and they're called males. Break free? Yeah. You become a Mgtow. It's like Liberation Y was saying, nothing pisses them off more than a male of great value that refuses to participate. Refuse to participate. Oh, they will hate you. They will chase you. They will chase you. And it'll become a game. Cat and mouse. But until we have in our community a group of men that actually just act like men and group together like men and do things like men, and for no other reason than he is my brother, I will support him, we will never win this thing. I know these are hard things. I know I went through it. I still learn daily. I still get those lessons brought to me daily, and they still hurt. Like I said, this week alone, I've been served a lesson, a new lesson on how evil they can be. I've been served a new lesson. Well, that was interesting. I never knew that happened. Now I know. Now I know. And it was a hard lesson. It came with a lot of pain. It came with a lot of pain. My son started dying this week. And then once again, I spot the gynocentrism in it all. And it reaffirms my beliefs. And it's why we Mgtow. And it's hard to explain. I know it is. It's hard to, until you feel it, until you've internalized it, until you spotted it, until you can articulate it, and until you see the anti-logic of the community that you live in, until you see how the government feeds on it. It'll be a long process. And there'll always be. I don't know how many times in my life I've woken up and I said, I think I've seen everything, God. You can take me now. And then the next day, something new and bizarre happens, and I go, I haven't seen that one before. That's Mgtow. Haven't seen that one before. That was a new one on me. You got me. Oof, oof. You sure got me. And it come in a million different varieties, ways, flavors, and 10 million different sorts. And it's hard to pin gynocentrism down to a single thing, which we try to do, and it's for our own comfort, because we need to pin that thing down, that thing that happens. We need to pin it down to one single thing so we can know of it. You're never going to pin that thing down because it comes in a million different shapes and forms. And most of the men at some certain point that come around here will just acquiesce and say, I give up, because it's too hard to fight against it. It's just too hard. And it is. It's hard. It's hard to be a Mgtow, and it takes courage, and it takes strength. It takes tenaciousness. It takes a passion that should last a lifetime. Do you have that passion? I see a lot of guys in my rooms here and that have that passion, really have that passion. We have nowhere to send it off into the world. We shoot these arrows out and they just land randomly into the woods, these ideas. So we keep shooting them out, hoping that it'll take hold and hit our target someday. I think Varnagate did a book about that. The Rabbit, I'm not sure what it was called. It'll be a lifelong process of, re-engineering your brain after getting beat down so hard at school. After the feminism has permeated every piece of your body, the animus, what Jung was talking about. He wasn't talking about women, by the way. He was talking about the male, how the feminine permeates parts and parts of us, and it feels like dirt on our soul. That's what he was talking about. It feels like dirt on our soul. But there's something you can do. Recent discoveries in my world, at least. Just imagine yourself happy. I'd like everybody to do that. Just imagine yourself as a male happy in this world and what that would take. Just close your eyes for a minute, take a pause, take a break for a second, and imagine yourself happy. Because that's all you got. World is chaos and absurdity, and you have to spot it. And I think that's a be all for today. That's all I have to say. It's been a rough week, and I'm tired. And I'm tired. And once again, I get beaten down by the gynocentric gods. But I come back swinging. You know why? Because each and every one of you are here for me. And I will never acquiesce, and I will never tell them they're right. It's all because of you. Each and every one of you being a Mgtow, doing your part, your whatever part that is. I don't care. I don't care. I was saying the other day, they're all calling this one Mgtow member wrong or bad or something was wrong with him. And I don't know, he's doing his part. Let him do his part. Each Mgtow does his part. He reaches out to another Mgtow eventually and talks to him, and we lose that casual cruelty, and we can start working together and start that collective that they used to talk about, that used to be the patriarchy, that gentle wink, wink, nod, nod between men, that we agree with each other for no other reason that we are brothers. And we know that if we don't do that, the girls will wink, wink, nod, nod between them and their collective for no other reason that they are sisters and mothers. And if that's all we have, and that's all it boils down to, why not do it, brother? And that's Mgtow. It's each and every one of you. It gives me joy in my life, that permits me to imagine myself happy someday. We all know we're still rolling that boulder up that hill. But for a brief moment in life, imagine yourself happy. Imagine yourself a Mgtow. And see how it changes the world. That's it. That's all I got. for each and every one of you. Thanks for coming around. And most importantly, thanks for being a Mgtow. Mgtow.